What is going on YouTube? Hope everyone's having a fantastic day, as always. So today we're going to try something new on the channel. I'm going to be bringing to you over the next couple of weeks a series of successful business people. So you're going to see these videos. I hope you enjoyed them. But I'm going to cover 5 or 6 successful business people from bygone days and also modern days. And hopefully you can get some inspiration, or just hope you find it interesting to what happened years ago, how these guys made their fortunes, and hope you can draw some comparisons to the mindsets and the mannerisms of which a lot of these men and women, basically how they made their money and how they kept it, and that business mindset, as I say. So if you like these videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you'd like to see any other series done or any other videos, just leave a comment down below. And if you need any help in your business, or any online affiliate marketing, digital sales, or just basically need any inspirational videos, just leave a comment down below and reach out and I'll get back to you, no problem. So here we go. Successful Business People, Volume 1. Hope you enjoy. So, Successful Business People, Volume 1. Cornelius Vanderbilt. Cornelius Vanderbilt, who was also widely remembered by his nickname as the Commodore because of his early successes in the marine ship trade, is the first of the great railroad tycoons. Vanderbilt is perhaps the best definition of the term entrepreneur, as he built a massive fortune on sheer determination, will and belief. He did so with very little formal education. However, due to his ruthless business nature, to an extent early railroad executives like Vanderbilt built the public perception that railroad barons were heartless profiteers, caring for little more than expanding their own portfolios. And it was true that Vanderbilt loved to make money. Interestingly, while the Commodore is forever remembered by the railroad empire he created, this career did not begin for him until very late in his life, as for years he had worked in the steamboat business. Today, much of the New York Central system, which he created, remains an important transportation artery. Cornelius Vanderbilt was born in 1794 to a rather poor family who lived at Port Richmond on New York's Staten Island. Perhaps most interesting, in comparison to his amazing success as a businessman later on in life, was the fact that he only had formal schooling through the age of 11. At that point, he quit school and began helping his father, who worked in the boating trade, where Vanderbilt first learned about the business he would make a career for more than 50 years. At the age of 16, Vanderbilt began his own ferry service between Staten Island and New York City, with the help of a $100 loan from his mother. Understanding that offering cheap, affordable prices in the service industry could gain a lot of customers, Vanderbilt's little ferry operation earned quite a tidy sum, as he quickly repaid his mother the loan along with an additional $1,000. 2 years later, during the War of 1812, Vanderbilt was able to secure a government contract to move supplies to military forts based in New York. This enabled Vanderbilt to truly enter the maritime industry, as he now had enough funds to build a few of his own ships, in particular schooners. It was at this time that he earned the title of Commodore, due to the fact that he had operational the largest schooner on the Hudson River. Around the age of 24, he left the ferry business and began working for Thomas Gibbons in the steamboat trade. Though virtually everything Vanderbilt attempted, he was quite successful, and the steamboat business was no different. In 1892, he went out on his own, operating a service between New York City and Peekskill. As usual, he looked to cut rates as low as possible, often putting his competitors out of business or winning in court when they claimed he held an unfair competitive edge, such as in the Supreme Court case of Robert Fulton and Robert Livingston in 1824. He was worth $500,000 by 1834, and during the rush for gold in California in 1849, Vanderbilt made even more money in the steamboat business by offering a trip that travelled through Nicaragua, saved hundreds of miles, and cost far less. He later briefly tapped into the transatlantic steamship market, but this venture was rather unsuccessful, and he gave up on the idea around the start of the Civil War. Around the time Vanderbilt's legacy in the railroad industry began, in 1863, near the age of 70, when he took control of the New York and Harlem Railroad in 1863, much to the charm of Daniel Drew. By the time Vanderbilt took over the railroad, it operated between New York City and Chatham Four Corners, that is now Chatham. Overall, this was a rather rundown operation, although it did provide service directly to downtown Manhattan, a point not lost on the Commodore. A year later, he took control of the Hudson River Railroad in 1864, which operated parallel to the New York and Hudson between Albany and New York City. Vanderbilt, of course, had already established himself as a no-nonsense businessman who could be ruthless in getting what he wanted. He oversaw significant growth of the New York and Hudson and laid its future foundations as a world-class carrier. He immediately changed the railroad's name to New York Central and Hudson River Railroad when he merged the original New York Central Railroad with the Hudson River Railroad, later including the New York and Harlem as well. He held a commanding presence in New York City, and after gaining control of the Lakeshore and Michigan Southern, he reached Chicago on a northern route that was virtually flat, late known as the water level route, in comparison to PPR's main line through the Alleghenies. The NYC and HR was again renamed as the New York Central Railroad when it merged with LS and MS in 1914. Throughout the early 20th century, the New York system continued to expand, reaching Boston, Pittsburgh, Wheeling, and the coalfields of southern West Virginia via the Toledo and Ohio Central Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, St. Louis via the Big Four route, Detroit, Michigan, and even Montreal, Quebec, and Ontario, Canada. Through the years, the railroad gained control of notable railroads to reach these markets, including the Pittsburgh and Lake Erie, Indiana Harbor Belt, and the aforementioned Big Four. In 1867, he sparked the Erie War with Jim Fisk, Jay Gould, and Daniel Drew, when he attempted to gain control of the Erie Railroad to include with his NYC and HR system. This would be the only time Gould ever bested Vanderbilt. During this time, the Erie Railroad was one of the most successful systems in the country, and what essentially started as an argument between the two turned into a battle of wills as Vanderbilt attempted to corner Erie's stock. In response, Gould and his associates attempted to artificially inflate the Erie stock value, also known as watered stock, which is fraud and against the law. However, Gould only defeated Vanderbilt by bringing the New York State legislature, which allowed the stock to be legalized. Over the years, Cornelius Vanderbilt had entered disputes with many in the business world, such as Drew, Fisk, and others. However, nearly all of these associates he became friends with later on in life, except Gould, who often tried to smear Vanderbilt in the public after the Erie incident. The Commodore passed away in January 1877 at the age of 82, amassing a fortune of nearly $100 million, which would be worth more than $143 billion in today's dollars, making him one of the richest Americans in history. In his will, Vanderbilt left $95 million of his fortune directly to his son William, with his 8 daughters receiving $250,000 and $500,000 each. Unlike James Hill and a number of the other famed railroad tycoons, Vanderbilt was not much of a philanthropist, endowing only $1 million of his fortune to the greater good, which went to the Central University in Nashville, Tennessee, that became Vanderbilt University. John D. Rockefeller. John D. Rockefeller, 1839 to 1937, founder of the Standard Oil Company, became one of the world's wealthiest men and a major philanthropist. Born into modest circumstances in upstate New York, he entered the then fledgling oil business in 1863 by investing in a Cleveland, Ohio refinery. In 1870, he established Standard Oil, which by the early 1880s controlled some 90% of US refineries and pipelines. Critics accused Rockefeller of engaging in unethical practices such as predatory pricing and colluding with railroads to eliminate his competitors, in order to gain a monopoly in the industry. In 1911, the US Supreme Court found Standard Oil in violation of antitrust laws and ordered it to dissolve. During his life, Rockefeller donated more than $500 million to various philanthropic causes. The early years and family. John Davison Rockefeller, the son of a traveling salesman, was born on July 8, 1839, in Richford, New York. Industrious even as a boy, the future oil magnate earned money by raising turkeys, selling candy, and doing jobs for neighbors. In 1853, the Rockefeller family moved to Cleveland, Ohio, where John added high school and briefly studied bookkeeping at a commercial college. In 1855, at age 16, he found work as an office clerk at a Cleveland commission firm that bought, sold, and shipped grain, coal, and other commodities. He considered September 26, the day he started the position and entered the business world, so significant that as an adult, he commemorated his job day with an annual celebration. In 1859, Rockefeller and a partner established their own commission firm. That same year, America's first oil well was drilled in Titusville, Pennsylvania. In 1863, Rockefeller and several partners entered the booming new oil industry by investing in a Cleveland refinery. In 1864, Rockefeller married Laura Celestia Spellman, an Ohio native whose father was a prosperous merchant, politician, and abolitionist active in the Underground Railroad. The Rockefellers went on to have 4 daughters, 3 of whom survived to adulthood, and 1 son. John D. Rockefeller and Standard Oil. In 1865, Rockefeller borrowed money to buy out some of his partners and take control of the refinery, which had become the largest in Cleveland. Over the next few years, he acquired new partners and expanded his business interests in the growing oil industry. At this time, kerosene, derived from petroleum and used in lamps, was becoming an economic staple. In 1870, Rockefeller formed the Standard Oil Company of Ohio, along with his youngest brother William, Henry Flagler, and a group of other men. John Rockefeller was its president and largest shareholder. Standard Oil gained a monopoly in the oil industry by buying rival refineries and developing companies for distributing and marketing its products around the globe. In 1882, these various companies were combined into the Standard Oil Trust, which would control some 90% of the nation's refineries and pipelines. In order to exploit economies of scale, Standard Oil did everything from build its own barrels to employ scientists to figure out new uses for petroleum byproducts. Rockefeller's enormous wealth made him a target for muckraking journalists, reform politicians, and others who viewed him as a symbol of corporate greed and criticized the methods by which he built his empire. As the New York Times reported in 1937, he was accused of crushing out competition, getting rich on rebates from railroads, bribing men to spy on competing companies, of making secret arrangements, of coercing rivals to join the Standard Oil Company under threat of being forced out of business, building up enormous fortunes on the ruins of other men, and so on. In 1890, the US Congress passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, the first federal legislation prohibiting trusts and combinations that restrain trade. 2 years later, the Ohio Supreme Court dissolved the Standard Oil Trust. However, the business within the trust soon became part of Standard Oil of New Jersey, which functioned as a holding company. In 1911, after years of litigation, the US Supreme Court ruled Standard Oil of New Jersey was in violation of the antitrust laws and forced it to dismantle. It was broken up into more than 30 individual companies. Philanthropy and his final years. Rockefeller retired from day-to-day business operations of Standard Oil in the mid-1890s. Inspired in part by fellow Gilded Age tycoon Andrew Carnegie, who made a vast fortune in the steel industry, then became a philanthropist and gave away the bulk of his money. Rockefeller donated more than $500 million to various educational, religious, and scientific causes. Among his activities, he funded the establishment of University of Chicago and the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research, now Rockefeller University. In his personal life, Rockefeller was devoutly religious, a temperance advocate, and an avid golfer. His goal was to reach the age of 100. However, he died at 97 on May 23, 1837, at the Casements, his winter home in Ormond Beach, Florida. Rockefeller owned multiple residences including a home in New York City and an estate in Lakewood, New Jersey, and an estate called Kykhoot, Old Dutch for lookout, set on a 300 acres near Tarrytown, New York. He was buried at Lakeview Cemetery in Cleveland. Richard Branson. Entrepreneur Richard Branson launched Virgin Records in 1973. Today, Virgin Group holds more than 200 companies in more than 30 countries. Born on July 18, 1950 in Surrey, England, Richard Branson struggled in school and dropped out of age 16, a decision that ultimately led to the creation of Virgin Records. His entrepreneurial projects started in the music industry and expanded into other sectors, making Branson a billionaire. His Virgin Group holds more than 200 companies, including the recent Virgin Galactic, a space tourism company. Branson is also known for his adventurous spirit and sporting achievements, including crossing oceans in a hot air balloon. His early life. Richard Branson was born on July 18, 1950 in Surrey. His father, Edward Branson, worked as a barrister. His mother, Eve Branson, was employed as a flight attendant. Richard, who struggled with dyslexia, had a hard time with educational institutions. He nearly failed out of all the boys in Sutcliffe School, which he attended until the age of 13. He then transferred to Stowe School, a boarding school in Stowe, Buckinghamshire, England. Still struggling, Branson dropped out at the age of 16 to start a youth culture magazine called Student. The publication, run by students for students, sold $800 worth of advertising in its first edition, which was launched in 1966. The first run of 50,000 copies was disseminated for free, after Branson covered the costs with advertising. By 1969, Branson was living in London Commons, surrounded by the British music and drug scene. It was during this time that Branson had the idea to begin a mail order company called Virgin to help fund his magazine efforts. The company performed modestly, but made Branson enough that he was able to expand his business venture, adding a record shop in Oxford Street, London. With the success of the record shop, the high school dropout was able to build a recording studio in 1972 in Oxfordshire, England. Virgin Recordings. The first artist on the Virgin recording label, Mike Oldfield, recorded his single Tubular Bells in 1973 with the help of Branson's team. The song was an instant smash, staying on the UK charts for 247 weeks. Using the momentum of Oldfield's success, Branson then signed other aspiring music groups to the label, including the Sex Pistols. Artists such as the Culture Club, Rolling Stones and Genesis would follow, helping to make Virgin Music one of the top 6 record companies in the world. Business expansion. Branson expanded his entrepreneurial efforts yet again, this time to include the travel company, the Voyager Group, in 1980, the airline Virgin Atlantic in 1984, and a series of Virgin megastores. But Branson's success was not always predictable. By 1992, Virgin was suddenly struggling to stay financially afloat. The company was sold later that year to Thorn EMI for $1 billion. Branson was crushed by the loss, reportedly crying after the contract was signed, but remained determined to stay in the music business. In 1993, he founded the station Virgin Radio, and several years later, he started a second company, V2, founded in 1996. V2 now includes artists such as Powderfinger and Tom Jones. Branson's Virgin Group now holds more than 200 companies in more than 30 countries, including the UK, United States, Australia, Canada, Asia, Europe and South Africa. He has expanded his business to include a train company, a luxury game preserve, a mobile phone company, and a space tourism company, Virgin Galactic. Branson is also known for his sporting achievement, notably the record-breaking Atlantic crossing in Virgin Atlantic Challenger 2 in 1986, and the first crossing by hot air balloon of the Atlantic in 1987 and Pacific in 1991. He was knighted in 1999 for his contributions to entrepreneurship, and in 2009 he landed at number 261 on Forbes World Billionaires list, with a 2.5 billion in self-made fortune, which includes 2 private islands. Virgin Galactic. In recent years, the ever-adventurous Branson has focused much of his attention on his space tourism venture. He partnered with Skald Composites to form the Spaceship Company, which is currently developing a suborbital spaceplane, and in April 2013, the project made an impressive leap forward with the test launch of Spaceship 2. Branson was delighted by the success of his spaceship's first test, telling NBC News they were absolutely delighted that it broke the sound barrier on its very first flight, and that everything went so smoothly. He expects to be finished testing the craft by the end of 2013. By April 2013, more than 500 people had bought their tickets for the first galactic voyages. Branson is married to his second wife, Joan Templeman, with whom he has two children, Holly and Sam. He currently lives in London, England. David McConnell. David McConnell was the founder and president of the California Perfume Company, which later became Avon Products. David McConnell was born in Oswego, New York, son of James and Isabella McConnell, who came from County Cavan, Ireland, in 1845, and settled in Oswego, where James McConnell became a farmer and brick manufacturer. Brought up on a farm, McConnell attended a district school and was planning to become a mathematics teacher, but instead entered business life in 1879 as a salesman for the New York Book Selling Agency. In 1880, he joined the Union Publishing Company of Chicago, and 3 years later was placed in charge of the Southern Territory, making his home in Atlanta, Georgia. He started out selling books. With books, he did not get enough income, so he started to add free perfume, which he made himself. Soon he saw that ladies were quite interested in buying perfume, even more than books. He decided that if books could be sold house to house, perfume could too. Out of this conception grew his California Perfume Company, CPC. At first he manufactured his own perfumes at home and went during the day selling them along with books until his enterprise grew and he had to discontinue his book selling and established a perfume laboratory in Suffern, New York. Other toiletries and cosmetics were soon added to his line of products, which he sold under the CPC name. Later the company also began to manufacture flavoring extracts and other household articles sold under the brand name, Perfection. From the onset, McConnell distribution of his products through housewives and other women who would devote only a portion of their time to the work. His first sales agent was Perez Foster Ames Albee. The years brought steadily increasing success. At the time of his death, his sales force had grown to over 30,000 agents, and the volume of sales was measured in the millions. In June 1909, McConnell and Alexander D. Henderson signed an agreement of cooperation for the California Perfume Company in the state of New Jersey. On January 28, 1916, the California Perfume Company was incorporated in the state of New York. McConnell, Henderson, and William Scheel were listed as company officials. Through subsequent changes, its name became Allied Products Incorporated and incorporated in 1924, being an outgrowth of the California Perfume Company of Canada, which was started in 1906. McConnell was president, chairman of the board and principal owner of Avon Allied Products Inc. and its affiliated companies until his death. He was also treasurer of G.W. Camrick & Co., manufacturers of pharmaceutical supplies in Newark, New Jersey, and a director of Holly Hill Fruit Products Inc., a large orange grove and canning enterprise of Davenport, Florida. He was one of the founders of the Suffern National Bank, of which he became vice president in 1901, president in 1922, and chairman of the board in 1927. He was again elected chairman of the board and president in 1933, and continued in one office or the other until his death. For varying periods of his personal life, he was superintendent of schools in Suffern, president of the Suffern Board of Education, and treasurer of the Rockland County Republican Committee. During the First World War, he was chairman of the Rockland County Selective Service Board. He was a Mason and a member of the Union League Club of New York City, the Ormond Beach Club of Florida, and the New York Country Club of Suffern, New York. He was married in Chicago in March 1885 to Lucy Emma, daughter of Ward Hayes of LaPorte, and they had 3 children. He died in Suffern on January 20th, 1937. Earl Silas Tupper. Earl Silas Tupper was born in 1907, and he was an American-born businessman and inventor, best known as the inventor of Tupperware, an airtight plastic container for storing food. Tupper was born on a farm in Berlin, New Hampshire. The Tupper family moved from Berlin when he was 3 years old. After studying at Bryant and Stratton now Bryant University, in Providence, Rhode Island. He became a landscaping and nursery business until the Great Depression forced the business into bankruptcy. He then got a job with the DuPont Chemical Company, the creation of Tupperware. Using black inflexible pieces of polyethylene slag, a waste product of the oil refinery process given to him by his supervisor at DuPont, Tupper purified the slag and molded it to create lightweight, non-breakable containers, cups, bowls, plates, and even gas masks that were used in World War II. He later designed liquid-proof airtight lids inspired by the secure seal of paint cans. Tupper founded the Tupperware Plastics Company in 1938, and in 1946 the company introduced Tupper Plastics to hardware and department stores. Around 1948 he joined forces with Brownie Wise, who caught his attention after she made a lengthy phone call to his office in South Grafton, Massachusetts, during which she explained her extraordinary success selling Tupperware via home parties. Based on a marketing strategy developed by Wise, Tupperware was withdrawn from sale in retail stores in the early 50s, and Tupperware parties soon became popular in homes. This was the first instance of party plan marketing. The corporate headquarters was moved from Massachusetts in Orlando, Florida. After his falling out with Wise, which resulted in her dismissal in 1958, Tupper sold the Tupperware Company for $16 million to Rexall. Shortly afterward, he divorced his wife, gave up his US citizenship to avoid taxes, and bought an island just off the coast of Costa Rica. In 1969, Tupper donated 428 acres of land in Smithfield, Rhode Island, to his alma mater, Bryan College, now Bryant University. The land was developed into the college's new campus, which opened in 1971. Tupper died in Costa Rica on October 5, 1983, at the age of 76. That's all for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Also, check out a couple of other videos here to the side. I think you'll enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe. Okay, cheers, guys. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah, there's something about you.